Okay, so how's it going, everyone? Killian here from Wattsup Studio and Coaching. We're doing something a little bit different today. We want to have a discussion with kind of one of the guys in the group, one of our athletes. Essentially, want to kind of talk about some of his experiences over the past year or two, his background coming into sports that he's taken part in, and essentially just having a conversation about things he's learned, things he's achieved. He's achieved quite a lot in the past year or two, and kind of just to share some of his experiences and things he's learned over that time. So I just want to give a thank you to Sean Gallagher for joining us today. How is it going, Sean?
Thanks for having me, Killian. And thanks for, I suppose, facilitating this. I'm kind of happy to explain the progress that I've been able to achieve with your help over the last while. So hopefully it'll maybe give some people some insight into how someone like myself could kind of go from doing very little to doing quite a lot in a short space of time, but, you know, in a way that's realistic and not, chancing my arm too much.
Yeah. So as if we bring it back to kind of when we first met in my kind of second office down in Costa,
Uh, yeah.
was that 2018?
Yeah, so I could give you a little bit of background on that. I think I may have even spoken to you in late 2017, but
Yeah.
I met up with you in early 2018. And to give a bit of background, I had just completed my first 10K back in November, which was the Mo run. So this was the end of 2017, and I'd found some good success with that in the sense of actually completing one because I was coming from zero background, and you know I didn't know what I was doing. I was like looking up stuff online. I was basically, I think I had the Couch to 5K app, and I was kind of just figuring it out. And I was running, and then I'd get out of breath because I'd run too hard, and then I'd walk, and I'd run, and I'd walk, and I'd use the app. And it would, like, I remember even looking back on my message that I had sent my family a couple of years ago, delighted that I was able to run 20 minutes without stopping. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's big.
that to me now it depends how fast you're running, right? But that now seems like, well, of course I'd be able to do that. But that'll give you a little bit of the context of, where my fitness was and that kind of thing. And then just the final thing to mention was that when I finished that 10K, it was about an hour and 7 minutes, maybe a little bit less. So, I mean, it's by no means a fast time, but I was delighted with the progress. And
Yeah.
I was fascinated by, wow, well, like, I'd normally have no interest in sports or fitness, but this was something that I put my name down and I followed through with it. So I was interested by it, and I didn't know, like, if I could do that and kind of wing it and then manage to enjoy it and the challenge and everything like that, maybe with a little bit more learning and coaching, I could take on bigger things. So that's kind of when I'd reached out to you, to our mutual friend Ryan,
Yeah.
because he's big into triathlon as well, and I think you were friends through that. So he was like, this guy you need to talk to if you want advice, and you were very good, and you were very open and helpful in being forthcoming about, well, I suppose I had a lot of the kind of the misconceptions about running of, running's bad for you, ruin your joints, you shouldn't run. I don't know, all these kind of things that would put you off running. It's hard. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
And someone like yourself with your background, it's definitely a case of probably when you started to get into running in your own terms, if you go on to Google and start looking at programs or how to get into running,
Sure.
you get quite overwhelmed with the information and the data and the plans that are out there that you don't know
Yeah.
what's going to be best for you.
Well, I think it's like anything with free stuff on the internet. You're never going to have a one size fits all, and you know I think some of the stuff that I was looking at was probably a year or two beyond my ability. So I suppose I was just like, the app was actually pretty helpful, that Couch to 5K, to kind of get me going. But
Yeah.
after coming to the other side of that, then I was like, okay, well, I've arrived at this point now where I can run a little bit, but I needed to take it a step up in a little bit more structure and actually get a little bit more real with the commitment of it, because initially it was just about completion, but then it was about like trying to get better and see, like, you know, what was I leaving on the table if I could do that on my own kind of steam to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, and that's kind of when we sat down and had a coffee, again, first time we met, that's kind of what the situation was. It was you're trying to kind of learn about the process of a non-runner getting involved in running, completing 5K, 10K distances, just by getting out and actually doing some work, getting the running, getting the time, the duration in, and now wanting to see what more can you do, what more can you learn to get more out of yourself. So that's kind of the picture of when we first met, was having a conversation where you were trying to learn and understand the processes of training and applying certain principles to your own training for goals and targets that you were looking to set for yourself going forwards. What did you take away from that first meeting that we had? What were the kind of the
Well,
main
like
learning curves you brought
in the back of my mind, like I wanted to run Dublin, you know what I mean? And that was a big
the
dream, you know what I
marathon?
mean? Yeah, Dublin Marathon. And this was at the start of 2018. So, you know, I just done that 10K with pretty minimal training. So I was thinking, right, well, you know, the responsible thing to do now would be like ask an expert and see if I am, you know, just an absolute chancer. Like, you know, you could have easily been like, well, look, you know, you need to wise up and do a couple more 10Ks and don't, you know, no, not that you said that, but you know, I didn't like, I didn't know if you said it to maybe a normal person, they'd probably be like, well, you know, maybe not for you. You're not really that person. But what I was interested in was, well, what would someone who would, you know, be able to do that? What would they do in the lead up to Dublin Marathon? What would they have to do? Like, what shoes do you need to get? What clothes do you need to wear? How do I, you know, do the nutrition? How do I, you know, what do I prioritize, and what's bullshit? And you know, what are the core principles and fundamentals? So, in the space of a coffee in your second office, I think I got a lot of those key principles in my head, and I took them like to heart. And I was like, okay, that's kind of what I need to do. And then I suppose I decided to build my confidence gradually in doing. I think that year I did the race series, so that would be broken up by another 10K, and then a 10 mile, and then a half marathon. But I think I did another half marathon as well. But it was just in the lead up to it to try and kind of get myself familiarized with being in a race, having nerves, what clothes to wear. Like I would be wearing way too many clothes as well, just stuff like that. You know, you just do real stupid stuff, or you know, you're like just like drinking way too much water, and then you need to go to the toilet at the start, or like just getting all that out of my system to just figure it out and realize that, like, okay, don't do that. You know, you're making all these mistakes. You know.
Exactly. You always take something from every race or every event that you do. There's always a learning curve, no matter what level or how experienced you are. You always take something away from it. And when you're new to the sport, some of those things may seem kind of silly or things that you should know, but they're not until you've been told what to wear or how much to drink or what to eat, how long before.
It's fun as well, because I knew I was an imposter, but I kind of enjoyed that, because I was like, well, guess what? I'm going to figure it out anyway. You know, I don't care if I wore the wrong shoes, or if I, you know, mess it up, or if I bonk, or if I am puking at the side of the road. I was going to figure it out. So I didn't really care. But obviously, it was much nicer to actually get good advice, to get the feedback and say, well, you know, you don't need to just go out and, you know, run 20 miles and redline yourself and like be really, like, I think some people have a very sadistic mentality about what it means to train for a marathon, especially for what I was trying to do there, which was more so just about completion. A lot like the 10K, it was just a dream for me to be able to finish it.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed. It wasn't about times or pace or any of that. It's just like, how do I get over the line? That's where my head was at. So I mean, I was just enjoying that journey. So I suppose to speed it up a little bit, I continued on with that in 2018, and I'd I think I stuck to a program from Dublin Marathon, which was grand for beginners. And it was actually in hindsight a good way of advising, and that I think it was only mileage focused. So it might be like, do 3 miles today or blah, blah, blah. But subconsciously, I was actually, perhaps through my laziness, I was only ever running at an easy pace. So that actually was standing to me very well, because I was like, well, because I don't care, I'm just going to complete it. I'll just run at a pace that I can keep doing. And to paint a little bit of a picture as well with my weight, like at the time, I probably would have been at my heaviest before I did that 10K, I probably would have been about 114 kg, which is like a significant amount heavier than I am now. I'm about 90 now.
Yeah, big change.
So that came down a little bit. So the weight was starting to come down, and then, you know, the pace had kind of improved. And then I suppose to talk a bit about the first Dublin then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Talk about your experiences of first marathon. So going from little to no running experience, got out, got some 5K, 10Ks in, got through the Dublin Race Series, and here you are, first marathon. How did it go?
Exactly, yeah. So all of those races were great for just building up the confidence and actually just understanding what they were all about, and the camaraderie. It's brilliant in the race series, but it's not a patch on what you feel when you're out there for Dublin Marathon, and it's like unbelievable, like hundreds, thousands of people just screaming at you and giving you sweets, and you know, it's I've heard people, now I've only ever done Dublin, but I've heard people say that the support is like no other. So it's a huge moment. I love that. And I did loads of things wrong. Again, I don't even think I had a watch at the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just went out, and again, wearing way too many clothes, put the boot down, had a go. And
a common phrase from Sean Gallagher, put the boot down.
No, I was trying my best with the knowledge that I had, but as I said, I just wanted to finish, and I did finish, and I did it in like 5 hours and I think about 7 minutes or something like that.
And how did you feel when you finished that first marathon within your first year?
It was amazing, and again, it was the feeling of when I finished the 10K the year before, where I was like, well, like, if you've done that, like, what else are you leaving on the table here? You know, because once again, you kind of look at it in hindsight and say, well, look, I did try hard, and I didn't really have, say, the full coaching. I'd only really met you for a coffee, so I wasn't able to really get that full extent of that guidance and coaching from you. So I was thinking, well, right, you've completed it now, so let's try and see what I could actually do in a year if I properly committed to a training plan, to coaching with you, and actually setting some targets. And something to mention as well is that with the Mo Run, I was fundraising for Movember in 2018 as well. So I've raised a couple of grand, like up to now, for Movember, to begin suicide awareness and stuff like that. So that's a big driver as well for doing all these races. So I was thinking, right, for 2019, I'm getting serious now. You know, it's past the point of kind of pat on the back for finishing. I'm thinking more like, okay, I'm actually going to try and do this. I'm going to try and commit to the training and take it more seriously. And that's kind of when we had started kind of doing the coaching with yourself, and we had done that kind of consultation where we were mapping out the goal setting, and then I suppose where I was and where I was trying to get to, and the time we had, and then mapping out a training program to be able to become the person who could do all of these things. So I think, do you have anything to say on that? Or
I think a common thing that I tend to see, particularly with some of the athletes that we start working with, is taking your example, coming and going through a season of running events, building up to a marathon, completing a marathon, and completing it being the main goal, completing a marathon. And once you do that, what we find is we see there's a shift in our mindset in terms of, I've gone from this marathon being, geez, can I do it? Am I able to do it? Coming to a stage where I've ticked it off, I've completed it. We feel great, we're buzzing. Then the next stage is, what next? What more can I do? Can I do it better? Can I make my training better, more efficient. I think that's a really big switching, a moment where our mindset switches, is that those limits that we place on ourselves get stretched further and further away. I think that's, again, one of the things that came to the forefront when we met up for that second time after this. Was you came and you're like, I've done this, I want to do it better, I want to do more. So after
I
that
wasn't
marathon,
happy with the time either. I was like, I was like, that was like, I mean, it was about completion, but like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for me out there. And the fitness, and you know, it put manners on me, and that, like, I will never let anyone say that a marathon is grand, because it's always a challenge. It's always so hard, and
oh yeah,
you have to respect it, because it's like, fair enough if you do ultra marathons and all that. I commend people who do, but the marathon is still like so hard. So I
yeah.
mean, I was like, it was a dose of reality, but I was very intrigued. You know, I was like, well, how do I, you know, I kind of felt like I was taught a lesson, and I wanted to kind of come back and give it the respect it deserves. You
Yeah,
know?
and if for anyone that's listening today, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same boat that have been quite humbled by certain distances or certain
Yeah.
events, or first time doing certain races. So it's definitely kind of part of the process, part of the journey.
And it's subjective as well, and that, like, the 10K was really hard as well. But I think, you know, it depends where you're coming from. But yeah, for me in particular, at that point, I was like, whoa, that was so hard.
And did you find, from a physical point of view and then from a mental point of view, what did you find quite the most challenging, or that tested you the most,
Well, I mean, the
or
most obvious
both?
thing, I was just carrying so much weight. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And my body was like, you know, that's a lot. It's like the equivalent now of running around with 2 sacks of potatoes on my back. You know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I was feeling that. Like, I remember my core was breaking down. I couldn't like hold my body up, and I was like, my neck, and I was like, my form was so bad. I was like, um, oh, and then I ate loads of like pasta the night before in a panic, and like just all of the stuff that I'd never do now, you know.
Panic
But
carb loading.
yeah, it's good to do that and get it out of your system, and then you're like, well, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah,
And sure enough, when I did it again most recently, I could talk a little bit about that in a while, but I was way more relaxed, and I was like, I'm going to eat a normal amount of food, and I've, you know, I've done what I need to do, and I know how my body works, so I don't need to turn myself into some weird science experiment.
yeah. I think it's a good point in terms of, say, from the food side of things, in terms of what we're eating, when we eat it, and also the weight side of things. I think we'll touch into that a little bit later on. If we come
Yeah,
back to then to our second meeting, when you'd completed this successful first year of getting involved in running,
yeah.
um, then the next time we met, he came with some different goals and some different targets. So for going into 2019, tell me a little bit about what was in your head, and what you were planning to do.
Yeah, so it was a very big year for me, challenge wise, and that, like, I was trying to ramp up the charity initiative, and I felt like I'd gained so much positive mental health from doing all of this running, that I was like, well, why don't I just do way more sports and fundraise more, and try and, you know, become healthier, while, you know, raising some awareness about the benefits of it, and, you know, do it that way. So in light of that, then I wanted to get into triathlon. So I decided to sign up for the 70.3 in Dunleary. So it's the half Ironman. It's not going ahead anymore now, but it
Yeah,
was.
and
So
this is before. So again, the only thing from a sporting background you've done is that several events and several running series in Dublin. Prior to
yeah,
that,
yeah. I mean, like, I genuinely had only ever really like done a bit of a dabble in the gym here and there, but there was no consequence or goal or reason to keep going. I'd do something for a while, and then people might be like, "Oh, did you lose weight?" And I'd be like, "Yeah," and then I just lose interest. Do you know what I mean? But I
yeah,
realized that from my kind of personality, that if I have a target, and then I put the kind of the money on the table, then it's exciting. And I'm like, right, well, I've had my name down now. I have to show up. I have to do it.
Yeah.
That was the fire that I needed. So I was like, well, why don't I just go big and try and bite off potentially more than I can chew, and see what happens. What's the worst that's going to happen? You know, even if I did half of all these challenges, I'd be delighted.
Yeah.
So I
So
went for the 70.3, and then I had a bit of a pipe dream about swimming the Liffey swim, because it was the 100-year anniversary, and it just seemed like a great thing to do. And I'd be like, how cool would that be to swim that? But
yeah.
again, hadn't done swimming lessons since school. Probably swim a bit. You know, like there was no, I didn't know what was going on. You know,
Yeah.
it was
I
just,
think part of that is probably a good thing for what unraveled then that season. So um for anyone that knows myself, I've gotten big into the swimming over the last kind of year, 2 years. I've been dealing with injury. I enjoy swimming. I enjoy open water swimming, but I've struggled with the cold. But then meeting Sean, and then when Sean came to me with these swimming goals and targets for the season, and a lot of that involving open water swimming in your skins, for me there was a bit of a not a reluctancy there, but just to be mindful that, again, little swimming background, and then wanting to get involved in open water sea swimming. Sean didn't even think twice about it. I think the first time we went out to the sea, like when you got involved into it, straight in, didn't even think twice about it. Got in, yeah, it's freezing, but stuck it out. And I think I learned quite a lot from you from that side of it, in terms of exposing yourself to that, not overthinking it, not overcomplicating it. And tell us a little about the race season that you got involved in with the Leinster Open Sea Swims.
well, just quickly on that, I mean, it is an advantage being a bit of an imposter of sorts, because maybe if you're around people who all agree that it's horrible to jump in the sea in a pair of togs, you get that into your head. But to me, I showed up for my first practice session with Dublin Swimming Club, great club. I'd recommend if anyone's listening. They're a real friendly swimming club. I was down in Killiney, and no one was wearing a wetsuit, and I had brought a wetsuit because I was like, I don't know if they'll be wearing wetsuits, and I was like, you know what, I'm not wearing a wetsuit, I'm going for it. And it was so cold, but you know, the other people around you who are all ages, sizes, and fitness backgrounds just love swimming, and they're getting in, and they don't care, and they're delighted. And it's, you know, it's that community element of it, and you realize on the flip side of it, here's people who are saying that it's great and they can't wait to get in and not wear a wetsuit.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, a lot of it can be what you're telling yourself, and you're saying that you don't like it, and I won't lie, it is unpleasant, but there was something exciting about that, because each week for the training with Killiney, I'd be saying, okay, these races are coming up, so I'm going to have to jump in now and swim the boys, or, you know, just try and get more comfortable with swimming in the open water. So the challenge that I was looking at was, I had to do 6 swim qualifier races to be able to qualify for the Liffey swim, because that's what it said on the website. But because it was the anniversary year, that ended up unraveling into it being different rounds of qualifiers. So if I really wanted to solidify my place, I'd have to do 12 qualifier races, and I'd never done a swimming race in my life, or anything like that. I didn't know what was going on. I remember I queued up for the first one, and they were like, okay, you're off, what was it? You're off go. And then I was like, I didn't know what that meant. And that means, you know, when the time goes go, you go. So there could be pre-go, or people who are off 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or more for the really good swimmers, because it's a handicap swimming system. But that'll just give you an idea of how little I knew.
And how did that first race go?
It was mad. It was mad. But it was in Sea Point, and it was just a real buzz, you know. So I was very nervous. Didn't know anyone in the club. I didn't know anything really. I think I WhatsApped the club captain, and then managed to find them. I asked some of the friendly people in the club, how do I do this? Kind of, and they were like, do this, 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 and this, and then just went for it really, and it was fine. It was about 1,300 meters, so it was a bit shorter than some of they're normally like mile swims in open water, but it's easy enough to tell where you're going because there's kind of a flow of people, and it was the opening race. It was a little bit easier, but some of them
Yeah.
were a lot more challenging. But fast forward to I ended up qualifying for the Liffey in the first round with 13 swims at the deadline for the qualifier, and I ended up swimming 20 swimming races in 2019 in the open water. So
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. And from, if you had told me that at the start of the year, I mean, I remember I was freaking out when I knew it was. I had it in my head, okay, you'll do six, just do six, and then you can do the big race. But then I was like, these are great crack,
Yeah.
and then it became more of a looking forward to it thing. So
Yeah.
that was a nice paradigm shift.
And that's massive in terms of initially coming up with the idea and the plan and the goal to
Yeah,
get into the qualifiers to swim the Liffey for its 100th year. And all you did was decided that's what I wanted to do. How do I go about doing it? These are the amount of races I have to do to qualify for it. You did it. You swam those races. You qualified for it. And then again, I remember going into town then on the day to watch you swim that Liffey
yeah,
swim. And it's just testament to figuring out what your goal is, what your target is, finding out the way to do it, and just getting after it. And fair play to you for doing that. Really, really big achievement to do
and I
for a
really
non-swimmer.
appreciate your help as well, because I was well aware of the cheekiness of that, and that I was kind of like, I don't know, like, am I taking the piss a bit here? But you were very good at laying out a plan that was very manageable for me coming from where I was, and it wasn't like you buried me in training. It was more like, do this, we'll work on this, and gradually building up the confidence and consistency, and I was able to pull it all together really, and then feel like, yeah, I can do this. So
Yeah, big
good.
massive things learned, and vice versa. I learned a lot from you in terms of exposing myself to some of that cold open water swimming. Eventually managed to get in once or twice for a few short minutes in my skins
Yeah,
without the wetsuit, but it helped me to love the open water swimming that bit more. So I think it was a good journey that year from the swimming side of things, and
definitely.
uh, big things achieved from yourself, and a lot of lessons learned. And also, like that, the mindset and approach that you take to doing something like that can be applied to anything. You weren't a
Definitely.
swimmer, you weren't an open water swimmer, you didn't have any experience, but you set your mind about it and you achieved it.
And that's the big thing I want to say about doing this format of an interview, is that it's not about me, putting my feet up and telling war stories about how great I am. It's just that I'm actually not great, but I work hard and I put the work in. And anyone can do any of these things. There's no magic pill. It's just figuring out which one to do, make it real, follow a plan, and then you'll get there, because most of the time people will rule themselves out before they've even done anything. They'll be like, no, that's not me, I can't do it. And
Yeah,
I just think it's healthy to have a bit more of a what if kind of mentality to it. I'd be like, well, if I did all that, like, and if I did these things, what if I could, so and as you said, as you hit those milestones, then everything moves with what's possible. So
yeah.
that incremental progress is nice, but there's a pattern there of just consistently doing the work, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand that, because the process, it's all down to the process of it. And for yourself being able to achieve that in the year, that was great. It may have happened that way for someone else. It may take a little bit longer, but if you stay on the path and stay on the process of working towards those goals, you will get there. It's a matter of when, not if. And it's when you start thinking about these things from a positive side of it, that okay, I want to do this, I know I can do it. It may take this amount of time, or
Yeah,
being patient with it, but always in the back of your mind knowing that if I really want to do it or achieve it, I can. I think that's a really big important point to get across, and for
I
people
think
to learn.
so. I think so as well, because I think a lot of people, like I was saying, might have an unhealthy relationship with something like a race challenge, and they say, right, well, I've signed up for this and I've done it and I'm never doing it again. Whereas to me, I would have a very different attitude to it and be like, well, if I get completely put out with an injury, or if I'm just completely ruled out, then it's just going to take a little longer, but I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
And
Good.
that kind of mentality is very different. Whereas if you are putting all your eggs in one basket, and if something goes wrong, you're a lot more likely to quit.
Yeah, and I think that can be quite a common theme, and particularly in triathlon or with triathletes, is putting pressure or unnecessary pressure on yourself in
Yeah,
terms of trying to say, particularly say if we take Ironman and people chasing a specific time or a specific qualification race or event, and everything they do is all down to that. And what can happen there is the enjoyment can be lost. That the pressure can get you, and chances are the likelihood of actually succeeding in that type of situation it is actually diminished. And if we don't
yeah.
achieve that goal, then yeah, okay, we might say, "Feck it, I'm finished. Hasn't worked out. I'm disappointed," and you can kind of pack it in. Whereas
Yeah.
being process orientated is a lot better than being result orientated.
It's important to enjoy it as well, in the sense of that all this stuff is hard work. But I mean, if you're there and you're doing a race, if you can't smile and appreciate the crowd, or appreciate the celebration of all the work that you've done, why are you doing it? Why are you paying all this money to do Ironman, to be angry at yourself, or
Yeah,
whatever it may be? I mean, I was buzzing at all those races, because I was like, yes, I'm here.
yeah. I
Fun.
think what you often hear is you don't have to train, is you want to train. It's the type of sport, and endurance sports in general is you need to enjoy and love the process of training and improving yourself. Whereas without that, the chances of succeeding or sustaining your training in the long term side of it is less.
I was going to say as well, and then being in Wattsup studio as well was very helpful with that, because you can end up burning the ear off people who don't do any of this stuff. So when you meet other people who are into that, be it in a club like Wattsup, or if you're in a triathlon club or swimming club or whatever, that's a great feeling, because people get it and they understand where you're coming from, and they have that passion and that interest, and that can lift your spirits a lot. The
Yeah,
camaraderie of, if someone else is sitting on a bike for 3 hours on a Saturday morning, it
yeah.
helps.
Yeah, I think it's good as well to be able to know the environment where you can talk about that stuff and people want to listen, and then know your environment and know the times when not to be talking about that stuff when people don't want to listen. So being able to have that outlet is great, and being able to switch off is really, really important as well. So
Yeah.
in terms of the swimming side of things, so again, really successful year, great achievements made. If we go over to our triathlon side of it then, so um, no biking experience. You've done some running.
I did a sprint. I did that King of Greystones one, which was fun to just understand what transitions were like and things like that.
Yeah,
But I had done I think I did a swimming race and the Dunleary bike course route the day before. So I was so wrecked.
the day before the Greystones race. Yeah,
Exactly. So I was just completely tapped out, but I still really enjoyed it. It was fun, but I was another level of exhausted trying to put in a good performance at
yeah,
King of Greystones. But it's another good race, Gavin Glynn Foundation. So cool to go and support that as well.
yeah.
They
It's
do
good.
good stuff.
It is a great race, and it's quite a nice, relaxed atmosphere, that race, and
Exactly. Yeah.
different
Chill.
different to the TI ruled races. So it's a really good one to do. So that was your first triathlon, and that was in the season that you'd signed up for Dunleary. So before signing up for Dunleary, you'd never done any triathlon, not really done any cycling or any biking in any extent.
No,
So
not really. I mean, I
what
knew
what
you did it, so I mean, I was kind of asking you about it, but I wasn't as interested in kind of being as incremental with the distances as I was maybe with running, because I probably just didn't have time, to be honest, to be able to do that with all of the swimming.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's where it comes down to the priorities of our
Yeah,
targets and our goals dictates how we train and how we devote our training each week across the disciplines. But
yeah.
talk to us a little bit about the kind of the process leading up to Dunleary and the 70.3 itself, going from zero triathlon to one of the most challenging half Ironman races in the world.
Well, again, I suppose the ignorance is bliss, in the sense that, like, I always knew I was going to be, I was always going to have to respect it a lot, because I had no experience and I didn't know what I was doing as far as having any real race experience. So I was really respecting it more than some of the people who I talked to. Who were like, oh, what? You know, they didn't even really know about how hard the bike course was. So there were certain things that I did that were maybe strategic and kind of calming my nerves. Like, I did the bike course a good few times through, and I do it like fasted with water and stuff. So that was fun. But, you know, just being able to rehearse the day and try to, you know, maybe do a brick run on a little bit of the run course as well, trying to visualize it and trying to let it go wrong in training for it to go right on the day, so there'd be less surprises. But
and if someone was to ask you, I know the Dunleary course is gone, but if someone was to ask you, I was thinking about doing that race, what's your overall impression of the race itself and how you found it, being your first half Ironman race?
I thought it was really nice. I mean, the Ironman people, like, they know what they're up to with doing all those races all over the world, and I had the briefing and everything like that. So even if I hadn't done all that prep, I felt pretty good going into it with the rules and what to expect. The atmosphere was unreal, as far as like the amount of people out there and how much it just took over Dunleary. It was unfortunate in that the swimming was cut a little bit short, but it didn't matter because I'd already done nearly at that stage probably about 18 races. So I was like, well, I know I can swim that far. So that's fine. You know, it's probably made the day a little bit easier on me.
And that bike course,
the bike course is amazing. And I think it's a shame really that people might be a little bit shy to do it, because it is hard. Because I feel like you're missing the point if you're trying to pick an easy 70.3. I mean, it's supposed to be hard, but I don't know. That's maybe something that I don't understand. But to me, I love what it represented as far as the challenge. And then, you know, in practice, again, it was just really fun, because I'd done good prep with yourself and all the coaching and training programs. So I knew that I was going to be set up to do well. As far as, you know, I'd done the prep well with all of the swimming, so I knew that was in the bag. I'd done the bike course enough times, and I'd done the practice triathlon, and then I had all that running behind me. The only thing was I did sprain my ankle, so I was a bit like I was a bit unsure if it was going to hold up, so I kind of had to kind of put the running on hold. But I mean, probably would have got a little bit of a faster time, but I didn't want to risk not being able to compete, so I just dialed off the running for a while. But you know, it was nice in a way, because maybe someone would have looked at that as an out, but I was just like, I'll just walk if I have to. You know,
Fenton gave you a bit of a chance to develop your biking a little bit more during that time, those few weeks leading in.
But I thought it was a great race, and it's a shame that it's not around anymore. But you know, that was it. You know, I was happy to take part while it's still around.
Yeah. So that was again another big milestone ticked off. 0 triathlons, going off and completing Dunleary 70.3 with a smile on your face. I remember seeing you in the run course. Suffering as with everyone, but with a smile on your face. And again, job done, crossed that finish line, and enjoyed those finish line feels. And then if we fast forward then towards that was August. So if we go towards Dublin Marathon time, that was the next thing on the cards.
So I suppose the ankle didn't really do too well a couple of weeks before, when I was playing tag rugby, and then it just wasn't right. So it was a matter of me kind of resting it, and a lot of people, including a good friend of mine who was a doctor, was giving me abuse because I was like, I'm just going to do it anyway. So it's fun. That's funny.
A little bit of stubbornness in there, all right.
But I was like, well, again, I'll just walk if I need to. I'm not going to not do it, but I'll try and give myself the best chance going into it. So the running suffered a little bit. So I didn't even really do any long runs. I was doing more biking and so on. But it was nice to do it with all of that experience in that year. and then I got to run the race with my girlfriend. It was her first time doing it, and she nearly beat me
Yeah.
because I blew up in the middle. I had a much better time, but I just didn't have that kind of aerobic fitness from not doing those long runs. So I think in and around Heartbreak Hill, the kind of wheels came off a little bit, and then I managed to kind of pull it back. But I still managed to cut about half an hour off my time from the year before, so it was about 4:34.
Yeah, big,
Um,
good chunk to knock off it.
yeah, and do you know what? That was a great result considering it was pretty minimal actual like long run training. So
Yeah,
I was happy with that, and then have my name down now for this year, and we'll see what happens with that.
yeah,
Even if I have a feeling it may be postponed, like some of the other big marathons, but I hope it still happens.
yeah, yeah. All to be decided with racing later on this year. If things go ahead or not, chances are probably not, but we'll have to wait and see. So that was again the really really successful season. I'd say the amount of things that you learn by putting yourself into those situations, getting those race experiences, the highs and lows of training and balancing swim, bike, and run. Um, Things that you've learned over the year, or things that you've learned that have been good, things that you've learned that have maybe not been so good. What are a few things that you can highlight?
I suppose is what I said a minute ago about the consistency being the most important thing, and that like people tend to complicate things so much, and most of the time it's not really complicated at all, and that like if you're just consistently putting the work in, that's probably going to get you the best results. So you can kind of use up a lot of energy and speculation and trying to, I don't know, maybe look up what some famous person does and they're like a professional. Maybe you look up some training regime from some professional triathlete or something like that. I don't know, but being able to kind of have faith in a simple approach and just commit to that, and actually, ride out that process, and actually, understand if it did work. Because if you keep changing it, you've no way of measuring whether or not something's actually working. So
Yeah,
hang in there with whatever you're doing. And then I suppose the other one is something I mentioned before as well, is just enjoy it. So actually, you know, have a reason to enjoy it, and don't be just doing it in the sense of being hard on yourself. If say if it's like 5 minutes slower than you wanted, like who cares? Just do it again and you'll figure it out. Um, and I think sometimes maybe even the body is just tired that day, and maybe just there's other factors. So you can't always have everything riding on a ultimatum kind of a thing. So it's important to kind of to be open to whatever ends up happening, and you can go again and it'll be fine. And then things, what was it? Would you say things that I didn't like as much?
yeah.
Getting up early on a Saturday morning. I'm not good at getting up early, but sometimes it has to be done.
But you always feel as tough as it was coming in for a 3 hour turbo in the studio on a Saturday morning. You never regret it when once you finished and we got that coffee
Yeah,
and pasta.
yeah, I know. It was normally when I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, though. That was the real finisher, where you wouldn't be right for a while. But
Yeah.
that's my own fault.
And if someone was to ask you, so you mentioned earlier that when you kind of get into this journey at the start, you kind of weighed in about maybe 114, 115 kilos, and now you're
Yeah.
hovering in around just above 90 kilos. So what are one or the two things that you've learned from that side of it in terms of what you eat, how you eat, when you eat, or even I know we're kind of
Yeah.
big into some intermittent fasting as well. So
I'm big into fasting. Yeah, that's something that I've seen a lot of really good benefits with, and it's something that I'd always encourage people to investigate, because there's a lot of health benefits. This isn't just kind of vanity benefits of, oh, I want to get my beach bod and blah blah blah. There's a huge amount of stuff there in the health benefit department that you can look up. And I'm not a scientific expert or anything like that, but if you even just Google the benefits of fasting, there's a lot of stuff there. And once you're doing it responsibly, if you're keeping your hydration right and your electrolytes, and being sustainable with it, and you're not just like redlining yourself without any kind of exposure or adaptation, I mean, it's taken me a good while to build up to it. I've probably been doing it consistently now for about a year, on and off. Like I think I took a bit of a breather around Christmas, just for the crack,
Yeah.
off
And,
season.
and if someone's to ask you two or three of the main benefits that you feel or you've experienced from implementing some intermittent fasting into your lifestyle, what would
Um,
they be?
well, I'd say like the when it goes hand in hand with the training, but it's fat burning. You know what I mean? So when your body starts doing the ketones, so if it doesn't have any actual food that you've consumed in your body, if it's run out of the the carbohydrates or the sugar in your system, and then the body realizes, okay, well, if he's not going to eat something, we're going to need to get energy from somewhere. And if your body is able to actually learn how to use fat storage as fuel, that's brilliant. And you can even get those benefits from just being sedentary. But if you combine that with exercise, so if you're doing fasted training, if you're able to go and do a long run with nothing but a black coffee and a bit of water, you're burning fat, you're becoming more efficient, and you're going to become a lot more effective if you're doing something like an endurance race, because your body knows how to use all of the fuel that's on you, as opposed to hammering gels and, I don't know, eating a bread roll someone handed you on the way by, or whatever people do. I
From
think
a
that's a big benefit, because it's a little bit like I was saying about the joints and stuff like that. You always hear, we need to carb load and you need to do this and that, and you can just end up eating a load of shite when you don't need to, because you think you're doing the right thing, but the body is very efficient. And one other thing I'd mention as well is that, just from a work perspective, personally, you get some serious mental clarity, and you'll hammer through the work when you're not getting those ups and downs of having sugary foods. If
yeah
you have something like a couple of croissants, it'd be nice for about 2 minutes, and then you're going to feel like you're going to fall asleep.
Yeah, you slump.
You
That's
know?
what I was going to ask you about, how it's affected you from a cognitive point of view. I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of mental clarity, sustained energy, and focus. That yes, this helps our training, but it's also quite a healthy approach to our lifestyle, and improves our focus and productivity throughout the day.
Yeah, and I think it's something that people can be a little bit all or nothing with, and that people think that I'm going to do this, and if I mess it up, then I'll just go back to the way I was. But the way I approach it is, I'll have a rough outline of what I like to do, and if there's a social thing, or if there's something that doesn't really fit with that, then I'll let it go. But if the majority of my time is spent doing this and I'm getting the benefits, it's much better than all or nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, very good. And just before we finish up then, what I'll ask is, obviously this year we were working towards Ironman Cork, which is being postponed till next year. So in the next kind of short term, what are you working on at the moment, or what are kind of your goals or targets you're working
Yeah,
on at the
so
moment?
I suppose, in light of all of the COVID-19 stuff, everyone's kind of plans and obviously have been affected beyond just like training and stuff like that, personally, with loss and stuff, and it's all very serious. So I mean, we have to understand that, but I think part of what I was saying earlier, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be a failure of a year. I think the plan just changes. So the plan for me was to run a bit more, because logistically that was a bit easier. Now I know they've loosened up the distances a bit now, so it might be easier to cycle or swim depending on where you are. But I've been running more, which is the thing that I loved originally, and it's nice to get back into that. So my current goal at the moment is to break 20 minutes on the 5K. And to give a little bit of context, I think I had a look at my time there from that first Mo run I did, and I think I went through the first loop, the gate, at about 31 and a half, maybe 32 minutes for the 5K. And my current PB is 22:29. So, I mean, that's like
10-minute chunk off it.
about 10 minutes, which is just,
Oh,
I'm delighted with, especially for such a short race. But, maybe you'd talk to people and you'd sit them down and you'd say, oh, in 3 years you could shave 10 minutes off your 5K. People don't care, but
yeah.
that to me is amazing. But I don't mind that gradual effect, because I know it'll pay dividends. So
Yeah.
I'll just see where it takes me. You'll see how close I can get to 20 or breaking 20, but
Yeah.
I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, very good. And it's exactly the right thing to do. And how we're approaching the current situation and the coming weeks and months is just changing focus. That we're races are not going ahead, but the process and the journey of becoming better athletes, becoming better people stays the same. It gives us an opportunity to work on certain aspects that we may not have focused on before. So it's a really, really good challenge to have set for yourself now. It's a specific goal, it's a specific target, and it allows us to have the training dialed in specifically to that. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes over the next few weeks.
And I think the main thing is that it's meaningful in the sense of, nobody else really is going to care that much, but to me it's exciting, so I think that's cool, and that's what gives you the drive, and that's what a race can give you. But I mean, if there's no races on, you can make your own and have fun with it, and gets you outside, gets you active, and that's been helping me a lot through all of this. So I just wanted to say that don't be automatically thinking just because something's cancelled that it's another signal to just eat a tube of Pringles.
Stay away from the Pringles. Last question before we finish up then.
Sure.
So hoping that things come back to normal in 2021, if you were to pick one thing or one big goal, what would be the focus, or what would be the goal for 2021?
Well, we'll have to finish the Ironman Cork goal. I mean, that was kind of taken away. So there's definitely unfinished business there. But to be honest, I'll probably see how my journey goes with my fitness between now and then, because I would like to do more running, but I will have to respect the triathlon. You have to cut your disciplines in three, so I can't just be running around the place and neglecting the other two. So might just have to be triathlon again.
Okay, very good. It was great chatting with you. Good to sit down and virtually chat with you face to face.
Definitely, yeah.
I think
hope
hopefully,
you're keeping well.
Yeah, hanging in there. It's a good opportunity to learn to adapt to the situation, and I'm definitely taking some positives out of it in terms of making a few changes from the business side of things, working on my own training and rehab and stuff. But just hopefully anyone who's listening there can take away a lot from this conversation, that the main thing we want to try and get across here is normal people doing quite big things or achieving quite significant things just by, number one, having the right mindset to say, if I want to do that, I can, and then being willing to put the work in to do it, having the right guidance, the right structure and plan.
I mean, I think that's a huge part of it, is just being open. I'd like to think that working with you is a little bit like having sat nav in a foreign country. Do you know what I mean? You want to have a good time, but you don't know where you're going. So it's helpful if you can say, right, don't do that. Go down this way. This is better, and don't be focusing on that. And that kind of guidance and feedback is going to stand to you. So just wanted to thank you for all the help, because I couldn't have done it without you.
I know it's been great. The journey so far has been great, and it's not over yet. We'll be looking forward to seeing how we go into next season. So appreciate that, Sean. Good catching up with you.
Thanks, Gillian. Thanks for talking to me.
All right, good stuff.